Hi, I'm James, and this is a tutorial for the Selectize Multi-Input Dropdown plugin from Zeroqode. Just before we jump into it, if you need any help building your app or product, feel free to reach out to our team by visiting our website at zeroqode.com. We're the largest maker of plugins for Bubble, as well as the top gold tier Bubble agency. We have almost 10 years of experience and can help you build any web, mobile, or AI product, or even help automate your business. While you're there, make sure you check out zeroqode.com/plugins. This is the full list of all the plugins we make, and there's like over 700 of them. So there's something there to cover pretty much everything your app could possibly need to do. For example, there's Stripe Marketplace Express. This helps you accept credit card payments on your app. There's Mapbox Maps, and this gives all sorts of maps functionality. This one's really good for saving on Bubble's hosting costs. This is AWS File Uploader, so you can store your files on your own S3 bucket. There's Air Calendar, there's Air Chat and Messaging. There's so many more there, so definitely explore that and check that out. Okay, let's start with a bit of an overview of the plugin and what this does. So Selectize is a really powerful, really customizable multi-input or multi-select dropdown plugin. It allows you to pull the options for the dropdown from the database or from a static list. You can let the user add custom items to this, and you can fully customize how this looks and works. So there are a few links on this page that are important for us to look at first. We've got our live demo button, the demo editor button, the documentation button, and our support chat. Let's go through these and have a look. First off is the live demo button. Now this is a pre-built Bubble app with the plugin installed, so we can experience what this looks like and how it works and behaves from a user's point of view. So this basic example here is the core of the plugin. We have an option, an input here with select an option. I click that, we can see multiple options, and clicking each one adds it to our selected area. And we can then press the X to remove it, and it goes back to the list here. Below that, we have a bunch of different implementations and more advanced ways this can be used. For example, here, we have a conditional option list here from an option set. So if you select option 1, and that determines what sub-options are here. Or if we have option 3, we have different sub-options here. So you can make it fully conditional. You can drag to reorder the items in here as well. You can allow your user to add new items. So I could say item 4, and I can add item 4, and there we go. It's been added to our selection here. This kind of setup is really good for this demonstration here, where you're pulling in countries that are categorized by different areas and regions like this, and you can add them all like this here. And this is pulling from an API, so this is more an advanced implementation. We can see down here filters as well that determine what can be added. So you can only create a new item if the text has more than 3 characters. So there we go. That trigger only appears once I've got my third character in there. So there's a lot this can do, and I do recommend having a look at this demo page to just experiment and see what kind of implementations can work with this plugin. If we go back to the plugin page, the demo editor button here is exactly the Bubble app that we just saw with the plugin installed, but from the Bubble editor point of view. So we can go through and see how this is set up and all the properties and parameters we can change and edit and adjust and customize. This is a really good way to see if this plugin works for your use case without needing to install it beforehand. You can kind of reverse engineer it here and look at the workflows and look at how it's built on the page. The third link is our documentation link. This will give you every bit of instruction and detail and documentation that you need to install this plugin and what everything does. So you've got an explanation of all the properties that are available to you here. And below that, we'll have some example actions and workflows and states and everything that's available to you to work with this plugin. So what I normally do is keep the documentation open in a separate tab while I'm working with a plugin, and I can just jump back and forth and refer to the instructions there. Last thing I want to mention on this page is our intercom support widget here. If you have any questions at all about this plugin before installing, while you're installing, troubleshooting, send us a message here. We'd love to help out and get right back to you. Okay, let's jump into Bubble and see how we can set this up. Okay, the first thing we need to do is actually get this plugin into our app. So in the Bubble editor here, jump over to the Plugins tab on the left-hand side, and then in the top right, click Add Plugins. And in the search field, we're going to type in Selectize. And there we go, Selectize Multi-Dropdown Input by Zeroqode. Now you've got 2 options here for installing this plugin. There's a once-off purchase, or there's the monthly subscription. Now, the subscription is actually the most risk-free way to try this out, as you're charged on a pro rata basis, meaning you're only charged for the days that you had this plugin installed and active in your app. So if you installed this plugin, tried it out for one day and decided it's not quite right for you, and then removed it the next day, you're only charged for that one day. So in this case, $18 divided by 30. Really risk-free, really great way to try it out before then committing to the larger purchase if it is what your app is needing. So whichever way you go, install this plugin and let's jump back over to the editor. Okay, so what I'm wanting to build in our simple demo here is a drop-down that allows a user to select multiple countries from a list that are organized by groups in terms of region that they are in the world, and then to save these selected countries to the current user and display it on our front end. Nice and simple, just so we can see how we set this up. So let's jump into it. I am here in the Bubble editor, and once we have the plugin installed, in our assets panel, if we search for Selectize, you'll see we have a new input form element called Selectize Dropdown. Put that on our canvas. Actually, I'm just going to change our layer to be column, and I might just group this. All right, I put it in a group and I put 40 pixels padding all the way around. Let's see what that looks like just as is. Not modifying anything. I'll hit preview. Okay, we have a simple page. We've selected an option and nothing happens. Looking good so far. Let's have a look at some of the properties and parameters and things we can change and edit. So by clicking on the element here, that'll bring up this properties panel. And this is where we change and edit and customize everything to do with how this drop-down plugin behaves and works and functions. But just briefly, this top section here specifies where the content of our list is coming from. Do we want a static list or do we want a dynamic list that's pulling from our database? What's our placeholder? Why don't we change that to select something, just so it's something different. Do we have max items? What's the initial value? Can the user create new options in the dropdown? Is there a filter? How many do we display? And so on and so forth. You can see that all of these let you customize and change things. There are some here as well for behavior. Do we want to enable drag and drop? Do we want to include the remove button at all? And so on. Then all of our design customization, the colors and the width and the radius and all that sort of styling side of things. So definitely scroll down and have a look through here. You've also got behavior around search options and how that works in with the design and the colors. And underneath every single one of these, you'll also see there is a show documentation button, which links through to what we were just seeing in the documentation page, giving more information around what every single one of these does. What I'm going to do for our demonstration here is I'm going to specify a dynamic list type. I'm going to pull it from the database. Let's jump over there very quickly and look in our data types. So I have a data type here called countries. And inside countries are given two fields, name and region. Nice and simple. And then in the app data tab, if we have a look at countries, I've added in 4 countries here, the United Kingdom, Italy, New Zealand, and Australia. And then I've given them a region, Europe, and Oceania. All that looks like inside here is text for the region and then text for the name as well. So that's what we're going to be using for our tutorial here. That is very basic, as you can tell. So I'm sure you'll have more complex implementations for your app, but this will be enough for us to see how we install this. All right, so back in our selecting the Selectize element, if I go through dynamic list type, it's going to show us all of our data types and option sets and that sort of thing. I'm going to select countries because that's what we have in our database. And the source, I'm going to do a search for countries. I'm not going to put any constraints on or anything like that for this here. We don't necessarily need it. Now the field that we want to display, it's showing all the fields for that data type that we've selected here, countries. I'm just going to say name. Okay, let's see what that looks like over here, preview. Okay, we're just loading here. So we're missing something. Oh, I know what it is. I haven't specified the dynamic field ID. Okay, so if I click show documentation here, it says if you're using data from Bubble database, use unique ID. Great, that's what we're doing. So I'll select the unique ID, which is the unique ID of each entry in our database for the country's data type. All right, unique ID is selected. Let's try that again. There we go. You can find all the elements. I click in and we can see Australia, New Zealand, Italy, the United Kingdom. They're the 4 entries in our data type. And we can see, yeah, all of them all get added. Now, we're missing something here that I think is quite useful for what we're doing. We want a little X to be able to remove once they're selected. So we go back to our Selectize element and I will scroll down. Where was it? It was somewhere here. There we go, the remove button. I'll change that to yes. Now let's try again and check that it's worked. Australia, New Zealand, there we go. We've got X's for each of those. Nice. Okay, now we want to group these. As we saw in the database, we have a field called region, and we've got Europe and Oceania there for each one. So I'm going to go back here, and I'm going to, just below where we specify the dynamic list, there's one here that says group by, and that's again showing the fields that are here in our related to this starter entry. So I'm going to say group by region. And now we hit preview, and we should see them now in the drop-down more organized. There we go, 2 from Oceania and 2 from Europe. Looking good. Now let's look at how we can work with that. You know, we know that we can select options from this drop-down, and we know that they stay present. What can we do with them from there? What workflows, and how can we make this more practical? So I'm going to drag a button in here, and I'm going to give it the label submit. Let me just change our group to a row, and let's put some gap in there, 20. Okay, that's a bit more organized. Now, what I want to do here with this button is when submit is clicked, I want to save the selected countries to the current user. And this could be anything to do with your current user or your user, any information that you want to save to their profile in the database. In our case, it's just multiple countries. Now, to do this, I'm going to go back to our database tab here. And under users, actually, no, data types and users, you'll see I've added an entry here, a field called countries. And it is a list of texts as our data type. So this means we now have a place for the items in the dropdown to live when we save it. Let's have a look. So if we hit preview, we are able to select countries, and we want to click submit and save them to the current user. So we need a workflow for that. I'm going to click on submit and add workflow. I'll click to add an action. And if I search for Selectize, we can see all the actions that we have that are related to the plugin. So we can set the focus, we can clear all the items, we can set a selected item and open the dropdown and all that sort of thing. But we don't actually necessarily want one of these. We want to modify the current user. So I'm going to backspace that and change to make changes to current user. And the field that I want to change is countries. I want to add, and here is where I'm going to search for Selectize. I'm going to add Selectize dropdown A's, all values. Let's just go back a step and have a look at what we have here. We can see the last value added, all values, the last ID added, the all values object, whether it's focused, whether the dropdown's open. There's a lot here that you can, work with and have as conditions and parameters within your workflows. But for us, we just want to add all the values to the current user's countries field. Now to display that, I'm going to make a second group on the page just so we can see the result of our workflow. So I'll put a new group. Let's just put that below. And in here, I'm going to put text. And I want the text to say current users countries. There we go. Just to match our group above, I'll put 40 pixels all the way around. Oop, not 4040. There we go. I'm going to put a second text element underneath, and this is where we're going to display the current user's countries. This is the dynamic data pulling from the current user. So I'll say this is where we want to display the current user's countries. Nice and easy. It's a bit confusing having both of those like that. So let's say selected countries, just so we have some differentiation there. And maybe we'll make that bold so that it's clear that it's a bit of a title. Okay, good. Let's see how this works. So now that we've set this up, we have our drop-down selector, we have a submit button. Clicking submit will then run a workflow. When button submit is clicked, make changes to the current user. And the change we're making is in the user's countries field, we want to add the drop-downs currently selected all values. And then in here, we're going to display the current user's list of countries. So this should start blank, all the selection countries, click submit, and it'll show in here. Before we try it out, I'm just going to make these groups in a row just to clean it up a little bit. Okay, that should do it for us. Okay, so we have our drop down here. This is all blank. I will select Australia and United Kingdom. Then I'll hit submit, and there we go. The current users' two selected countries are Australia and United Kingdom. Let's go back to the editor and make one more workflow here. I'm going to add another button. I'll put this below here and I'll say clear selected countries. And let's add a workflow. And on this workflow, we want to, again, make changes to the current user. The field we want to change is countries. And I'm going to say clear the list. All right, let's go back. We'll try it all out. So right now we still have those two. I'll click clear. We have none. I'll say Italy and Australia and submit. And there we go. Italy, Australia are now attached to the current user. It's in the database. One thing I think we'll try this out as well, because I had to manually delete those two. Let's go back to the editor and I'll say when the submit button is clicked, let's add a second step. This is where we want to select Selectize, and we'll say, where are we? Set focus, clear items. That's the one. We'll clear the items in the dropdown so that we can start fresh again. So now when we hit preview, and I go Australia and New Zealand, clicking submit will add it to the current user. But not only that, it'll also clear this input for us. There we go. We can start fresh again. Nice. Very clean. Let's look at also adding a custom one. So maybe we want to add Germany. That doesn't work just yet. So let's go back and we'll select our drop down here and let's enable users being able to create. I will change can create to yes. Now let's go back and try this out. So let's start with Italy and Australia, but now let's also type in Germany. And we can see an option to add Germany. There we go. We have 3 here now. I click submit and Italy, Australia, and Germany are now saved as a list in our current users database. Great. So as we saw in the demo app here, there's a lot more this can do, and you can really style this and make this quite nice, even like dragging and dropping. I mean, that's a very smooth little implementation, and that was just something we turned on. We can just turn on in the parameters. So definitely play around here and see what can be done, and then have a look at the documentation as well for more specific implementations and advanced implementations for what your app is needing to do. But for now, this should be everything you need to get this set up and running in a very basic implementation, and you can then start styling and making it fit nicely within your app requirements. And that's about it for this video. Thank you for watching. I hope it was helpful. And if you have any questions at all about this plugin, before building, while building, troubleshooting, send us a message. We would love to help out. Happy building.